person. It needed to be, she needed to turn it over the way she put it is that she had had this dream that allowed her to found ArtPace, but for ArtPace to thrive and grow, it needed to be held by the dreams of many. And so she began to look at the idea of setting up a board for ArtPace. And as Rick Moore, who is the president of the Linda Pace Foundation and Linda's close friend and her lawyer and her, well, just her everything, will recall, and we recall this often together, this was a very difficult decision for Linda to make because she didn't want to give up control of ArtPace. But she also realized that for ArtPace to thrive, it had to have more stakeholders. It had to become bigger than Linda. And so she started with a board of visitors in 2001. I was on that board of visitors, and Amato Cruz, who's recently joined the board of ArtPace, was on that board of visitors. So it's the same old people keeping recycling, you know, the same old core group. And she tried it out, and eventually she did go to a board of directors, and now we have a fine board of directors of ArtPace, led by Travis Capps, who are directing the future of ArtPace. And so it all worked out, and in retrospect, I'm very glad Linda made that decision when she did, because it's given the board a chance to mature, and they certainly have.
Guillermo?
I was pretty close to one of the first board members that was invited, and I was very flattered. I think what made it very important to me, aside from, you know, loving Linda and loving what she was doing, but Catherine Kanjo's personality and energy was infectious, and it still is. And Catherine had really pushed to start an education program, and for our city. And I don't know what the numbers are today, but back kind of when I was still on the board, at our height, we were serving over 18,000 students. I would imagine they're doing
grown
a lot more than that.
Riley, you want to tell us how it's grown?
We have, I don't know the exact numbers. I might have to look in the
Well,
audits
tell
and
us
see
about
if I
some
can
of the
zoom in.
programs then that they do.
It's really amazing what the education program does. And it takes an educator who looks at the artist's work and then explains it to the students of all ages. Then they get to go back into the student studio and actually do a hands-on project where they get to make something that's directly related to the artwork that they've just seen, that really reinforces their vision and how they've seen that artwork, and they get to take it, quite often they get to take these pieces home with them. And so I imagine while these pieces are at home on the person's shelves, they can kind of relive that experience of ArtPace every time they see it. And it's really pretty remarkable program.
And it's, I'm sure also, I just say, introducing contemporary art to people, young people at a very early age.
Well, that's what I found so fascinating and touching. Was one of the early things that Catherine did, or that the educators had the kids do, is they gave them those disposable cameras, and they sent them off. And it was mostly kids, I think, from Fox Tech. Is that right, Mary? I think it was. That was kind of our school that we did a lot of stuff with. They had an art teacher that was, you know, just loving the fact that they had zero art program, and so ArtPace was their art program. I think one of the figures that never leaves my mind was that teacher told us at Fox Tech that she had a $75 art budget, and we asked her if that was a day or a week, she said that was for the year.
Well, you know, Linda had wanted to build something to honor the memory of her son, Chris, and she worked with Teresita Fernandez on designing this beautiful, it's 1 acre park in this across from Camp Street. And Linda was involved in all of it, in the selection of plants, in the architecture. Rick helped a lot in implementing this, getting it built and making everything work. And so that park became a sacred space for Linda, and a place where she could grieve and find comfort. And it's still that way. It is, it's the only, I think, privately maintained park in the city of San Antonio, and it's lyrical. Everything in it had some personal message for Linda, and so it was a great day and a happy day when we dedicated that park. Right, Riley? It was
It's really beautiful.
really beautiful.
Do you have anything to add about it, Riley? The dedication?
She was just really committed to the artwork, and that everything needed to be just right in the space. And you can still see the pieces over there. They're fantastic, from the writing in the stones to the Wednesday's Child pieces to the constellation with the white stars and the blue planets that glows sometimes at night on the day that and time that
Chris was born.
Chris was born.
So she could. This star field was built in a constellation of the stars on the day and time that Chris was born, and so Linda could see that at night, and of course that was nice and a comfort to her. So it was that kind of careful, thoughtful, artful approach to dealing with difficult things that made her, for many of us, very heroic.
Well,
She wasn't scared.
She wasn't scared.
Well, and at the same time, I look at it on top of it being something wonderful for her, and it was a gift. Once again, it was another gift from her to the city
Yes.
and to that neighborhood, because and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there are any parks in the immediate vicinity.
No.
That's really one of the special green spaces in that area, and so it was it was an unusual thing for somebody to do there. I mean, when you've got an acre, you usually want to develop it into something, and the fact that she did something beautiful for Chris, and for herself at the same time, I think it was very special for the community.
And today I was down there, and there were kids playing on Tumble Hill, and the park is immaculately maintained, and it is a work of art for our city.
Absolutely. And then in 2003, Linda made another really important decision with the establishment of the Linda Pace Foundation. Jan, what led her to decide to form a foundation?
Well, things just got so complex. There were so many tasks that she was doing, and she identified all of these tasks that she wanted to continue to do, and so she came up with establishing her own foundation in 2003, which is still in existence today. Rick Moore is the president. I am the vice president. Catherine Canjo is the trustee, the former director of Art Pace. And Morgan, who was a consultant who helped her form Art Pace, and Dennis Scholl, a collector, are the members of the foundation. And what she wanted to do was what the foundation does today, which Linda started in 2003, thinking of her life this way, to, number one, support Art Pace, and number two, support the Chris Park, and number three, to build her collection and have it exhibited in public places, and number four, to support the work of contemporary artists. And so, fortunately, she made these decisions before she was ill, and provided a way forth for her vision for how she wanted her work to continue.
And it does so beautifully now under the direction of Stephen Evans.
Stephen Evans is
Yes.
here as our director, and so.
Do either of you have anything to comment about the foundation?
No, not really.
Not really.
Other
Okay.
than-
Well,
other
let's
than
let's.
I'm very grateful to
Of course,
the
and-
formation of the foundation because they have been very generous in supporting a lot of different things in the community. And do you mind if I say something about the Jesse Amado piece at the library?
Oh, no.
No,
Steve.
go ahead.
One of the things that one of the first things that I approached the foundation with was, and you'll have to refresh my memory, there was a wonderful artist in residence from Japan, a female, and she'd done,
Yeah. Chiho.
I can't pronounce that.
Chiho.
I'm sorry.
Say it, Riley.
Chiho Aoshima.
Yes.
All right. She did a magnificent mural, but she made it out of, I think, rice paper or something, and then glued it on the wall, so it was very impossible to move it. But quickly to tell you a little bit about the mural and how people see our city, because remember, it's not just the people that we think about all the tourists and all these people that come and go, but we don't really think about what these artists that are coming here to our city to do a residency think about us. And one of my favorite pieces is this mural, because when you walked in and saw it, it was gigantic. I think it was 40 feet long, and I don't know, however high the ceiling is,
40 feet by 8 feet. And they
by
did
8
get it off the wall. She came back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, well, there's a lot, that's a whole long story. And basically, this mural was about San Antonio, but what was incredible was that in every mural and in every thing you see about San Antonio, it's the Alamo, it's the Tower of the Americas, and it's the river. And in hers, it was the biggest thing in the center of this 40-foot mural was the enchilada red Central Library, that Ricardo Legorreta designed. And of course, at the time, I was chairman of the Library Foundation, so I just kind of melted when I saw that, and I didn't know if somebody had bribed her to do that and put it on, but basically it was that the Alamo was this big, and you could hardly see the river, and it really put things into perspective about how other people see our city and not the way we want to project the image. But to make a very long story short, I felt that the mural needed to stay in San Antonio, particularly because of the library, and I really felt like I'd started an art program at the Central Library to bring important pieces. And they did get it off, but then it wasn't, it really wasn't something you could reinstall, and the sunlight and all the issues with it. So I approached the foundation and asked them if they would be kind enough to commission a piece of artwork in Linda's honor for the Central Library. And they thought about it, and they did. And we all chose Jesse Amado because not only do we love his work, but there's a lot of significance. He was a dear friend of Linda's. He was the first in the residency at Art Pace. And so Jesse created this magnificent piece. If you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. It is in the entrance lobby of the Central Library, and it is 22,000 and several, 22,000 and change wonderful different color crystals, and each one represents a day in Linda's life on Earth. So it's very emotional.
And I might add, Jesse made a discrete sculpture relating to that, which is hanging in the current exhibition for everyone to enjoy. Well, there's one last question, and I asked all of you to think about this in advance, so hopefully you've got something wonderful to tell us. And that is, we'll start with Riley. What do you want us to remember about Linda?
And her graciousness.
Okay, and Guillermo?
That she and I don't know how to say this without sounding, making her sound egotistical, because she certainly wasn't, but in my opinion, she put San Antonio on the map. Because everywhere I go, whether it's New York or London or Paris or any art fair or any art gallery around the country or outside of the country, and they always ask you where you're from, and you say San Antonio, and they say, oh, Art Pace. And so that's been the most, I think that it's most memorable to me, and I think it is very impactful, and I'm not sure if San Antonians fully realize that.
And I think they are more and more realizing it as each day goes on. And Jan?
Well, I thought about this a lot, and it was a difficult assignment, and this is an incomplete answer. But Linda, at the middle of her life, did a very bold thing. She seriously examined her life, the life that she was born into, and then she imagined the life that she felt it was her destiny to lead. And she made serious, thoughtful decisions to take control of her own destiny. And that destiny centered around the power of art to change lives. And I think that's the reason that today on her birthday, so many of us are busy continuing to do some of this work. Not all of us are, there's no one person doing it, but as I said, I reflected today, just like the crystals on Jesse's piece in the library, how many of us are affected every single day of our lives by something Linda did and that we're continuing to do. And that seems to me a remarkable legacy.
And what a legacy it is. I want to thank our panelists, first of all. And they'd be happy to answer any questions that you in the audience may have. So, are there any questions? Yes. Do we have the microphone? Let's pass you the microphone so we can get you on tape there.
It was mentioned before the founding of Art Pace that there was some resistance. Was the resistance an element of the conservatism of the town? Like, was the fear that it would be a waste of money and resources and it wouldn't have a reception, or was it that there would be such a limited audience for people who would appreciate this work? What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I think the way Linda felt the resistance is that she was doing something brand new. And the only kind of art that was interesting to her at that time in her life was extremely provocative work. And so she wanted to bring to San Antonio artists who would make work that would make us think. And that's controversial. But that's exactly what I meant. She seriously considered what she wanted to do, and that's what she wanted to do. She had seen art that had changed her in London and in New York, and she knew that the only shot that San Antonio would have at seeing that kind of art is if she made it happen. So I think the resistance wasn't to Linda or to Art Pace. It is to the resistance to art that makes us think.
Something that's challenging, in other words.
Is that,
I think that's
do you
fair.
agree with that, or?
There was no resistance from the artists, which was
Yeah.
the community
Yeah.
I was in. They wanted
No
more.
resistance from the artist.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all for coming, and happy birthday, Linda
Happy birthday,
Pace.
Linda, yeah.